and hopefully we'll all be back together in person as we all get vaccinated. So.
And the other program we wanted to mention was for PD Awareness Month, which is next month. We will be having a wonderful program in collaboration with Stony Brook for the last 4 Fridays of the month at 11 o'clock. We're going to be doing some really dynamic programs related to PD. We're going to have one on nutrition. We're going to have one on mental health. We're going to have singing. It's going to be really fun. It will be a registration, and we will be able to get those flyers out with the links probably within the next week or so. I would say a week or two. So just keep your eyes out for them. Okay, so without further ado, I want to introduce our 2 presenters. I'm going to read a little bit about them. Wendy Gordell is the founder of Goydell Law Group and Concierge Care Coordinator, a holistic practice model integrating care needs with legal and financial planning. Her goal is to help clients to protect themselves, their loved ones, and their assets while funding good and essential care. Wendy is passionate about and an advocate for safe and successful aging in place. And she is a Friedberg friend and one of our sponsors. And we're so happy to have Wendy here with us. And then another dear friend, Mike McClernand, is the owner of Assisted Living Locators of Long Island. His company helps seniors on Long Island and Queens match up to the best fit from among the 80+ assisted living and dementia care communities in this area. Mike is part of a national network of over 100 well-trained placement specialists working in their communities across the country. His background includes many years working in home care and in the medical business. He has served for 25 years as an executive for various technology companies and has multiple industry certifications and has helped over 100 local families find the right next home for their seniors. So we are very fortunate to have 2 esteemed presenters. So we're going to start with Wendy Gordell.
Thank you, Gloria. Can I share my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, just asking for permission. Okay, give me 1 second. I need the AV squad. Okay, can everybody see that?
Yep. Yes.
Whew. Okay, well, yes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So thank you, Gloria, for the great introduction. I couldn't have written that better myself, so I appreciate that. And thanks to Stacy and Pam and Sim, and I must have said something right once before because you asked me to come back, so I appreciate that. It's always my pleasure and it's my honor to be asked to speak with you anytime. Just so you know, full disclosure, the reason why I got into this area is because my grandfather, Matthew, had Parkinson's disease. And I was extremely close to him. He was a extremely successful, smart attorney, athlete, great sense of humor, did crossword puzzles and pen. So I like to think that I got a lot of my qualities from him. But many decades ago, there weren't all these resources like there are now that the Friedberg JCC and NYIT have for Parkinson's, and his situation was misdiagnosed. So for many years, he was diagnosed as having essential tremor. And I watched the progression of his disease once it was finally diagnosed, and I saw what happened to him, and I saw the struggles that my mother had in trying to care for him, bringing him back up from Florida and living with them for a while. And then he ended up moving into assisted living. And then unfortunately, he had to go into skilled nursing. So I watched my mother deal with the struggles and spending down all of his resources on care. At the time when in my personal family situation was at a time when the New York legislature was trying to criminalize Medicaid planning. So it wasn't really an option at that point. There was a Granny Goes to Jail Act. Well, thankfully, we're in a different era, different decades now, and there's lots of things that we can do. But some of the struggles that you have resonate with me, and I have a lot of empathy and understanding about, at least from can't put myself in your shoes, but I have a little bit of an understanding of what you go through, not just because I'm an elder law attorney, but because I saw it happen in my own family. So because of that, 22 years ago, I got into elder law, shift gears, and it's my passion. I've never looked back. So like Gloria said, this is my goal, and I have a lot of admiration for all of you and what you do. So, but what we try to do in our office is, obviously we try to get people to plan proactively. We want you to come in. We want you to know to educate you, know what your options are. Obviously, we can't stop the aging process, or we can't stop the progression of a disease or an illness, but we can help you to plan to put the best plan in place for you and your loved ones. So basically, there's two types of clients that we help in our office. Those are planning proactively in advance of a health crisis, when they're relatively young and healthy. And then we have a lot of people who plan in a crisis when, unfortunately, there may have been a diagnosis, there may be a health crisis, and now ultimately that person is not doing the planning. It's the family doing the planning, and the agents and the caregivers. So, but whatever it is, there are things that you can do, and you need to have the right information and know what the resources are and how we all work as a team to put this in place. So having a plan to find the proper care and to fund the proper care is really, really important. So we don't want you to procrastinate. We want you to proceed. We want you to plan proactively. And if you're on this call, it's not too late. There's probably a lot of things that you can still do. So I'm going to just briefly introduce you to some of the essential life care planning documents that we talk about, and when we do proactive and crisis planning. When you're dealing, or you or your loved one is dealing with planning for incapacity, really deciding on the proper agents to name, both to deal with legal and financial decision-making and for healthcare decision-making is essential. Doesn't necessarily have to be birth order of your children or other family members. Really understand, your agents need to understand the implications and the progression of your illness. They have to be willing to step in when necessary. So you need to be comfortable discussing all of these issues and what's going to happen at different stages of your illness or condition with your agents and your family members. Knowing what resources are out there, knowing who to ask, reaching out to us and other members on this team, and other Friedberg friends to get the right resources to be able to assist you in the journey. You need to understand and evaluate all the different care options out there, know what the funding sources are, and put a good plan in place to protect yourself. So like Gloria said when she introduced me, one of our big goals and one of my passions is helping older adults and those that are dealing with illness to safely remain in the residence of their choice for as long as possible, with or without care. So there's that residence could be the house that you raised your family in. You may have downsized. Maybe you went to Mike and he's going to talk about other options. You could be going to another apartment. You could be going to an independent living community. You may be going to an assisted living community. All good options. You just have to know what's out there and what's best for your situation and for your needs. So you can successfully age in place in any of those residences. So we want to maximize your quality of life and get you the best care possible. So when looking at the different options, we really have to know, you need to know what the different levels of care are. And that can range from supervision and check-ins. Maybe you just need some companion level care, maybe checking in through technology, socialization, like the wonderful programs at the Friedberg JCC, both in person and virtually. Maybe we all know we've all dealt with isolation during this pandemic year. So having socialization is really important. Then you may need more assistance with your activities of daily living. Your instrumental activities of daily living. And then, ultimately you may need skilled nursing care. So knowing what you need is important and what is provided in different care settings. And I'm sure you all know that care is very expensive. These are just some of the ranges. Day programs can range from $75 a day to $150 a day, depending on whether it's social or medical model. So knowing what the care costs are important in terms of how is that going to be paid for? How are you going to plan? So here you go. These are all the different sources of care that I've been able to come up with over the years, other than robbing a bank, which I don't really recommend. These are the options. So there's a lot of misconceptions, and people use Medicare and Medicaid interchangeably, understandably, and a lot. So Medicare does not cover long-term care. I'm not going to get into that tonight because I don't have time. But obviously, if you have high income or assets, you can self-insure. You can pay for it yourself. Long-term care insurance is always something we encourage our clients to look into obtaining if they're relatively young and healthy and they can afford the premiums. It funds a lot of different levels of care. And that could be at home, it could be in assisted living, and in a skilled nursing. Life insurance, veterans aid and attendance benefits are good for defraying the cost a lot of assisted living, reverse mortgage proceeds. And then the payer of last resort is Medicaid. Okay? You have to exhaust all other funding options before you ask the government to pay for care. I'm not going to cover long-term care insurance, but there are many different types of policies out there. So if it's something that you're interested in, better to look into it sooner rather than later. And if you need a referral or recommendation to someone who does handle that kind of insurance, you can always reach out to me or any of the other care partners. But Medicaid and the community Medicaid program is one of the biggest funding sources of care. New York has a very robust community Medicaid program. Most of our clients in our office who receive Medicaid benefits are receiving community Medicaid benefits rather than chronic Medicaid benefits in a skilled nursing facility. Again, that's toward trying to keep people in the least restrictive environment. So that is will cover home care, it'll cover adult day, and there are some assisted living community programs out there. So there are a lot of changes coming down the pike of community Medicaid. Right now, there's no look back period. I'm going to get to some of the changes on the next slide. But in addition to being able to be medically eligible for this program, you need to become financially eligible for this program. And those threshold levels change every year. The numbers here on this slide are the current numbers. So if you're single and you're applying, or you're married and applying and you're the applicant, you can only keep $904 a month of income, and the asset threshold is just under $16,000. So the numbers, as you can see, are a little different if you're married or what the non-applying spouse can retain, but that's it. So basically you have to render yourself destitute in order to apply for community Medicaid. There's a lot of things we can do to assist in helping you to become financially eligible. So community Medicaid up until recently did not have a look back period. Most of you know there's a 5-year look back period for skilled nursing care, but for community Medicaid, it didn't have any look back period, so that you could transfer assets out of your name today, and next month you could be eligible for Medicaid. Medicaid is phasing in a 2.5 year or 30-month look back period. So it was supposed to start many different dates. I've crossed them out on the slide just so you could see. It was supposed to start at the beginning of this year to be phased in. Then it was extended. It was pushed to April 1st of this year. Then it was pushed to July 1st of this year. And now we're really not sure. It's probably not going to start to phase in until 2022. So what's going to happen is at some point that look back period is going to start. So transfers on or after October 1st may be subject to penalty. It's a little unclear right now what's going to happen, but there's still ways to plan and protect assets. So transfers between October 1st, 2020 and whenever that implementation date is should be exempt. But it's really important if you're on the cusp of needing care or you think you're going to need care in the next couple of years to do the planning right away to try to get everything in and started before the look back period is implemented. There will be changes on the medical assessment side as well, with a new assessment tool and an independent medical assessment. So there are major changes that are coming down the pike. When we do plan to protect assets, it generally consists of executing various legal documents. So I'm going to talk about the trust, the main trust that we use. So a comprehensive life care plan to protect yourself, family members, and assets generally consists of trust-based planning, a will, an enhanced durable general power of attorney to name people to be able to step into your shoes and handle your legal and financial decision-making upon incapacity, healthcare proxy with a living will, perhaps a HIPAA authorization, and a personal care plan, which we prepare, which is a detailed set of instructions for how you'd want to be cared for if you're at home receiving care or in another care setting, so that this maximizes your quality of life and tells the caregiver how you want to be cared for and what you like to do, what you like to eat, what your activities, what your hobbies are. So we can create instructions around that. So when we look to help you to fund care, if you want to tap into the Medicaid program, if you are not going to be able to pay privately, cannot obtain long-term care insurance, you've exhausted all other possibilities, and you want to tap into community Medicaid, basically we talk about a Medicaid Asset Protection Trust. There's 3 trusts that are illustrated here through different boxes. The one that you see green, that's the open box, is a revocable living trust. I can't get into it in detail right now, but that's not a trust that protects assets for Medicaid planning purposes. All the way on the other side in blue in a closed box is a pure typical irrevocable trust, where once you put assets in there, you lose all control. You cannot get any income or principal out of that trust. So those are trusts used mostly for people who have an estate tax problem. So that's really not going to work for most families. So in the middle is kind of a hybrid or some combination of the two. We call it the Medicaid Asset Protection Trust. With that trust, you still can maintain a certain degree of control because you have the right to change trustees. If you need income generated from the assets that you put into that trust, you can get income out of it. But principal, you cannot access directly, and the principal that goes into the trust cannot be used for you or given back to you directly or be used to pay your bills. So this is a trust that we principally use to protect assets once we put them in to get past the upcoming 2.5-year or 5-year look back period. So to give you an example of what I mean, let's say you have $500,000 and your house, and you want to protect the majority of your assets for Medicaid planning purposes. We put the house and $400,000 into your Medicaid Asset Protection Trust. The other $100,000 that you need direct access to and control over, because you don't need Medicaid right away if it's in a proactive situation, we can put into a revocable living trust. You can keep it outside of your Medicaid trust. So you would spend that money down first. So let's say you spent down that money first, you got past the 2.5 years for community Medicaid, you suffer a health crisis, you need to apply for Medicaid, you get past the look back period, your house and the $400,000 in the Medicaid Asset Protection Trust is outside the look back period. That's protected. Medicaid can't count that as a resource, and we can apply for Medicaid. Obviously, I'm giving you a very short explanation and a very high level view, but in a crisis situation, there's still things that we can protect, a certain amount that we can still protect, and we may not be able to protect all of your assets, but typically we could put a plan in place that consists of trust-based planning and roughly protect half of your assets. So it just depends on the situation and what you have and where you are needing care. In our office, as Gloria said in the beginning, we have a very holistic practice model called Concierge Care Coordination. So we're not just looking at the legal and the financial issues. We have a geriatric social worker on our staff, and we work very closely with the whole team. So we're helping with the care coordination. Everything is client-centered. So we're putting all the pieces together. So we're coming up with a safe and appropriate care plan. We're integrating that with the legal and financial planning. So we can ideally put a plan in place to keep you home or in assisted living or in independent living with the appropriate care, funded in a way that will protect assets for your loved ones, not render you or your spouse completely destitute, so you can be able to maximize your quality of life and get the care that you worked hard for and you deserve. And again, everything we do is based on a team approach. So we're going to work with all of your different advisors. legal advisors, financial advisors, doctors, social workers, care managers, all different resources. We want everybody at the table to put the plan together to be able to help you to find the appropriate care, fund the appropriate care, help you to safely and successfully age in place. And I think I'm out of time. So based on the team approach, I'm going to hand this over to Mike to talk about how to find that appropriate care that you need.
Thank you very much, Wendy.
Sure.
Very smooth transition.
I tried.
Good job. So hi, my name is Mike McClernand. I'm grateful to be in front of you guys tonight. Thank you, Gloria and Sim, for inviting me. My business is called Assisted Living Locators, and I'm a placement agent. That's a term you, unless you're deep into the weeds of senior care, you probably haven't heard before. But placement agents provide, there we go. They provide, we provide assistance for seniors and families who are thinking about assisted living, memory care, and home care. So on Long Island alone, there are over 80 facilities that one can go to for assisted living and memory care. And my job is to help sort that out. And like Wendy, I come to this sort of organically. My parents, as they aged, my father had he had various ailments, and his body sort of wound down. But he had a classic sort of a peaceful death, hospice, family all around, and his mind was there. We were having conversations literally the last day of his life. But my mom had Parkinson's, and as my father was less able to interact with her, her Parkinson's related dementia got worse, and after he passed, it got a lot worse. And we promised as 20-year-olds never to, their words, put them away. And my mother was doing laundry in the oven, setting the kitchen on fire, so we had to find a place for her. And it didn't go all that well. I don't think we chose well, and she was never really happy and settled there. And I resolved that at some point in my career, perhaps I could help one family in my life. I could help one family have a better resolution for a parent than I had. And as my corporate career sort of came to an organic end, this became possible, and I was excited to jump into it. So I've been helping people for a year and a half now, helped about 100 families find some sort of assisted living, home care, or dementia care facility. So this is, I'll go through this. I have 11 slides just so you can anticipate it's not going to take too long. The types of senior living, right? People who are elderly mostly live on their own. They don't live in a specialized senior community. They don't live in independent living. They don't live in any sort of care that is given in assisted living or memory care. They live at home in apartments, and sometimes they have family helping them. Sometimes they have help coming in, but most people live at home. As folks need a little bit more care or desire more of a social environment, right? Living at home when you're old can be a very lonely life. So people move into 55 plus communities, independent living, just because they want other people around. They like the services, but they really want the socialization. When people need more care, though, they can be provided at home perhaps, or in independent living. They look for assisted living and memory care. And assisted living, it's just definitionally, it provides assistance with the activities of daily living. So we all need to bathe, dress ourselves, get up in the morning, move around. And some people are fairly independent, but they need assistance with one or two of those things. Showering is an example. The steam tends to incapacitate people, so they need assistance with showering. They're 90% independent, so assisted living provides assistance with activities of daily living. Memory cares is an advanced version of assisted living. So folks who have dementia related to Parkinson's or any other cause often need help with the physical activities of daily living, but they also need it delivered in a manner that's appropriate for somebody with dementia. There are certain care modalities and interaction modalities that are appropriate for somebody with dementia. And in the process of assisting them with their physical needs, their personal needs, they get care for their dementia also. And Wendy referenced her grandfather. So assisted living and memory care, they don't provide medical care per se. Doctors do visits there, but the care provided on a daily basis is done by certified home health aides. It's not done by nurses or respiratory therapists. So when people have consequential needs that have to be fulfilled by a medical professional like a nurse or a respiratory therapist, they go to a nursing home. 30 years ago, we really didn't have much assisted living. It was mostly nursing homes, and the less acute portion of the population has migrated from nursing homes to assisted living and memory care, and it's a more active life. And nursing homes have become truly the last stop. Most people in nursing homes are wheelchair bound or bed bound, have some very consequential need, and the people who have more cognition, have more physical abilities, are in assisted living or memory care. So congregate living is a broad category, but when people congregate, two things can happen. They can get care, several people get care by one aide. So the congregation allows one aide to serve a number of people, which is sufficient, and sometimes it's all people really need. They need a couple hours a day. Congregate care, it serves the needs of families as well as seniors, because I was, the first week I started this job, I visited a memory care facility, and a very wise woman told me, she said, look, dementia is terrible, but don't let it take the next generation. Don't let it take a whole family. We do wonderful work here. People will have as full a life as they possibly can here in our dementia care community, but don't let it take the whole family. So memory care preserves independence for seniors. It also preserves independence for families. So it really, once people get to the point where they need to think about some sort of community like this, it's a pretty serious situation. And it's a serious situation, not just for the senior, but for the family. And I was looking at the pictures of people earlier as they came on. I saw some people who were seniors and some people who looked like they were my age and children of seniors. And I urge you, based on my experience, to think about balancing one generation and another, not favoring one over the other, because everybody has to get by, right? So it's assisted living and congregate living in general can help families as well as the seniors. So it serves a variety of seniors, people who don't need help, people who need a lot of help with cognitive and physical needs. There are about 80 facilities on Long Island, 80 communities on Long Island, and there are some in Queens, not as many options. There are more on Long Island than in Queens. The model here on Long Island is 50 to 125 residents. There aren't too many communities that are bigger than 125. And most are private pay. About a dozen do accept Medicaid. Assisted living is designed to offer 3 services. They provide food, rent, an apartment, and the apartment actually, the fact that it is an apartment, and in most communities, it's not a ward or even a room with another person. It really helped during COVID because people have a door, they have a key, they stayed in their apartment, and most assisted living communities that have an apartment setup, the larger ones, they made it through, after an initial shock, they made it through COVID pretty well. So these are apartments. These aren't, generally speaking, shared rooms, although there are some shares. They provide socialization, they provide food, they provide the assistance privately to people who need help with bathing and toileting and the other things. The cost of assisted living, this is a seminar on cost and funding, so I'll talk about cost. Most assisted living places on Long Island have a care charge that they divide into 2 parts, rent and care. Rent covers meals, snacks, cleaning, laundry, and a whole variety of daily activities. So it's all the physical stuff. Care requires any assistance with the needs of daily living, and it also covers the administration of medication. So some seniors need no care at all, and they just pay rent. A few communities are different. They charge an all-inclusive fees, and because it's all-inclusive, they have to have boundaries around the acuity level of people. So people who are less acute can sometimes fit into all-inclusive communities, and it's a little more predictable financially. But if they're outside the boundaries of acuity, then they probably need to go into a place that provides a higher level of care. Rent is about $3,500 for the least expensive place, and that would probably be a shared room. So that would be counter to the norm. And it can go up to $10,000 for, I'm not advancing. Huh. Okay. So memory care, dementia care, it's really assisted living for people with dementia. So all the care standards from assisted living apply, plus it's delivered in a way that makes sense for somebody with dementia. Now, I think probably a lot of people here are unfortunately familiar with different kinds of dementia, Alzheimer's, dementia related to Parkinson's, which can take several forms, dementia related to vascular damage, stroke can cause dementia. There are other causes for dementia, but functionally, most people with dementia can't process, and they can't process as well, and they can't remember things all that well, right? We've all seen that in our elderly relatives, and dementia is kind of a progression of that normal memory loss. Sometimes people with various conditions that cause dementia also have physical problems. So the brain controls, the nervous system controls arms and legs, it controls the muscles that control the bladder. So because of the dementia process that's happening in the process that's happening in the brain, they have physical problems too. So it's almost certain that somebody with dementia in a memory care community will need at least some help with the activities of daily living. So memory care communities provide both the ADLs and they provide assistance for people with cognitive difficulties. Care here is different. I think that again, some people are familiar with dementia, but specialized communication techniques are really the most important thing. And I think it's the reason that people like memory care so well. There are a number of specialized ways to communicate with people who have dementia. You agree with them and you divert them. You know, if they want to go home, if they want to go to the baseball game, if they want to go to Florida, you know, that's great. That's great. Tell me about Florida. Hey, tell me about your daughter. Agreement and diversion. You enter the time period. Another technique is to enter the time period with a person gently. You don't want to go crazy, but if they're happy talking about 1955, you talk about 1955 with them. You never correct, you never argue. The activities are designed for success with people who have memory or processing problems. And importantly, medication is managed very carefully within memory care so that they get exactly what they're supposed to get. Now, memory care is like assisted living. It's designed to provide important services like food and rent and laundry. It provides socialization. It provides the ADL support for people who have problems with cognition. And remembering it generally affects the body in time. Alzheimer's and Parkinson's is a physical problem, as I'm sure all of you know, and it's not just related to dementia. So in a memory care unit, people are getting care for their mind, their interaction, and also their bodies. In memory care, the apartments are typically smaller. The standard is one room, what we would call a studio in the real estate world. Typically, people with dementia don't do well with big spaces and lots of choices. So a simple, nice room that's furnished well is what's the standard in memory care. All meals, again, outside of COVID, are held in common. All activities are held in common. People might go back to the room for a nap for a couple hours, but generally they're with each other during the day. Oversight and socialization is important there. The cost of memory care on Long Island. Many communities are actually converting to an all-inclusive care plan for memory care. So although there are some that charge rent plus care, increasingly it's rent, and it would be a charge, an all-inclusive charge would be $8,000 to $10,000 a month. If it's rent plus care, the rent would be a little bit lower, but then the care cost would be on top of that. So there's some expense there. some significant expense. My parents, Ray and Kathy, yeah, miss them. So my business is, there are 100 people that work for my company across the country, and there are other companies like what I do. On Long Island, there's 7 or 10 people who do this, and across the country, there's thousands. But I went through the process of getting independent certification on senior care and dementia. I had plenty of medical training from J&J. I'm somewhat like a very specialized real estate agent. So if you're looking for any old apartment anywhere on Long Island, anybody could probably help you. But if you want a place that has very specific location within a specific time cost, it has access to the right school district, had all other specific things, you probably go to somebody who really was clued in on that market. And that's me. This business has evolved in a free manner. It's free for families and free for seniors. If we end up placing someone at a community that we decide on mutually, then the community pays us a small finder's fee. But regardless of that, I'll interact with anybody on this call. You can call me, we'll talk, and I'll never, ever, for any reason, charge you any fee. And I'm sure you'll have access to the contact information later. And that's it, Gloria. Gloria?
Can you stop the share? There we go.
There you go.
And let me get
Okay.
you out of there. Remove spotlight. Should have removed spotlight. I didn't. I wonder why I can't remove your spotlight. Okay. Okay, thank you so much, Mike and Wendy, for both of those really, really informative presentations. What I should have said earlier, but forgot to tell you, is that if you had questions, to put them in the chat. But since I did not say that, and we do have time, and I think we could probably manage, this is a great time to ask questions. I do want to do a quick shout out to Julie Wexler. I don't know if Julie's here. I know I had seen her there. I just wanted to do a quick shout out. She's another one of our Friedberg friends and has really been very generous with the agency. And so thank you to Julie and the Bristol.
I'm
Okay.
here. Thank you so
Julie,
much.
there you are. I just wanted to do a quick shout out for you. All right, guys, anybody have questions? There's a lot of information thrown at you and good stuff. Anybody have something they want to? Okay. Gloria, is that right?
Gloria.
Gloria. Okay, Gloria. Gloria to Gloria.
Is there a waiting list in the most assisted living facilities? What is the waiting list and what is the shutdown situation right now?
So the shutdown would vary based on the particular community. Many places are having meals in common. They have guests who can come for a short period of time under great supervision. So the majority have, majority of the communities are opening up. No place has a wait list that I know of yet because they lost residents. People just didn't go into assisted living. So some people, they passed. Some people just naturally, they passed. And some people left the community to live at home. So they're still trying to fill up. And some places actually have, this is not a bargain business. This is a business that requires an outlay of a considerable amount of money. But given that, there are some incentives that are offered once in a while, and many of those are offering them now. So you can kind of take your pick.
I think we have a question from the chat. Joanna asked, how is someone who's mentally great but physically disabled handled?
So it depends on the disability. If the disability can be taken care of by aides, then they would generally be appropriate in assisted living. Now, most people who are completely bedbound would not be in assisted living. But if they can get up and help transfer themselves into a wheelchair and move around the community, enjoy the pleasure of other people's company, they would they would be handled by the aides, and it can be quite successful. A lot of people in assisted living are in wheelchairs, or they have severe arthritis, which is the #1 problem for elderly in and out of assisted living, and they do fine in assisted living. So it would be a matter of, and that's kind of where I come in, actually. It's be a matter of really assessing their need and trying to match that person to a particular assisted living community that would be good for them.
Okay, someone else have a question?
Yes, I have a question.
Go ahead.
My question is, once you enter an assisted living facility and you have a rent of, say, $4,000 a month, does that rent stay the same, remain the same amount for the duration of your stay, or does it increase every year or so often?
It increases every year.
By what percentage approximately?
Each place is a little bit different. 4 to 7, 4 to 8% would be a reasonable number.
And
Okay,
that's true for both places. Thank you.
I see a lot of hands up, at least that I can see. I think there's more on the other. I've got Amy, and then Gail. So Amy, why don't you go unmute yourself, please?
Okay. Hello.
Hi.
I have a question for Wendy, and this may also pertain to Michael. I just wanted, hello, Wendy.
Hi,
I
Amy.
wanted just to ask you really quickly. I actually, my mom just died just about a month ago and left me what's called a irrevocable third-party special needs trust. And my brother is the trustee right now. And basically, I'm probably going to be moving down to Florida where my brother is. And the home that I have is under, it's a co-op. It's under my husband and myself. We wanted to know if I could take that and, because my husband and I, we have Medicaid. We're, special needs people. And we wanted to know if I could take that and basically, so I don't ruin my programs, pretty much, take that and not have to open another trust.
Well, first of all, Amy, I'm sorry about your mom and the
Thank you
situation.
so much. Because
But
I
a
don't know
third-
too much about it. My brother thinks, he can, just take, the money that we get and just move it over, like Monopoly, pretty much.
Yeah, I wish I could tell you it was as simple as that.
I know.
But
And that's what I keep saying to him.
yeah, SSI and Medicaid don't like to play games, so no
Exactly.
monopoly here.
And I
So
have SSC.
yeah, I know. We definitely should speak offline because it's a much lengthier conversation, but you can't
Sure. I know
commingle
you said
your
you were gonna
funds
talk
with third-party funds. So it's really important that supplemental needs trusts get administered properly.
Sure.
So I'll talk to you about, what to do to try to protect the funds that you're receiving from because that's your money, not your
Because I
mother's
go through self-direction also, and I don't want to lose anything that I have. 'Cause
Amy,
I have
we'll
no-
connect. I'll
We
connect
certainly
you
wouldn't
and
want
Wendy
you to. We
together.
try to
Yeah.
protect your assets as much as possible and preserve your benefits. It's really important. So
We'll connect the two of you so you can have a conversation.
I
about it.
have your phone number through the chat, so I will
Yeah.
contact you. Okay.
It's
Excellent.
so important, because I'm
Absolutely.
very scared. I'm
Sure.
very, very scared.
I can understand that. Okay.
Okay, Gail, I know you had wanted to. Gail, just take yourself off mute. You can do it. You can do it, Gail. It's usually at the bottom left. Look at the bottom left. There'll be a line through something. You just have to press on it and it'll take the line off. Bottom left of your computer screen.
You have a microphone.
It's okay. She's summoning assistance. It's all good. It's all good. Yeah, just get her off mute if you could. Nope, can't hear you yet. Still on mute.
Unmute.
Oh, there we go. You got it. Thank
Okay,
you.
one closed door, please.
Okay, Gail, go ahead.
Okay, so Originally, I had, with me and my husband, we did about maybe a year and a half ago or so. We did his name, my name, and it was an irrevocable trust. And my daughter was the trustee. Okay. And since then, my husband has passed away. So I'm really confused about the whole thing. Do I still need a will? I don't know if this irrevocable trust is good anymore. I'm just very confused about it all.
Well, I can understand that. I'm sorry if it wasn't explained properly to you. It's important for us to take a look at the trust that you have. Typically, when a husband and wife do planning, oftentimes with the Medicaid trust, it's a joint trust, which then continues for the surviving spouse. So the protection is continued. So I would be happy to review it for you, no charge. You know, obviously, you know, anytime I do consults for JCC or anybody, I don't charge for my consultation. So it doesn't cost you anything to get the right advice and get the right information and education. Whether you need a will is a different question. So oftentimes a will just covers assets that are in your individual name when you pass away. So typically when we do planning, we try to avoid probate. So we would try to avoid you having anything in your individual name, which would require your will to go through a probate proceeding. So, but when we do trust-based planning, we always do a will for you just in case there is an asset in your individual name when you pass away. And then the will would say, well, that asset would come out of your individual name after your will goes through probate. And then that asset goes into your trust to then be administered according to your trust. So you probably do have a will that was done at the same time as your trust. But if you have your documents, I would be, you know, happy to take a look at them and answer your questions.
So I
in more
should just
detail.
call you privately and set up something with you?
Sure, you could call my office and we can set something up. Absolutely. And we can do it this way through Zoom or in person, whatever you're comfortable with.
Oh, okay. All right, then. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other questions? Nancy, do you have a question?
Yeah,
Go
I
ahead, Nancy.
was wondering, I saw that you had on the list of documents a healthcare proxy and a living will. I was sort of kind of under the impression they were basically the same thing. Obviously not.
Okay, so it's a really good question. They can be two separate documents. In my office, actually, we combine the healthcare proxy with the living will, with the HIPAA. And it's so a healthcare proxy, though, is a document that names one agent at a time to be able to make healthcare decisions in the event of incapacity or you're unable to communicate your wishes. The
Right.
living will document, we merge the two together, but the living will language is the end of life decision making. So
Okay.
that says if you're terminal, comatose, persistent vegetative state, no hope of recovery, you don't want to be kept alive by artificial means. That's basically the
Thank
living
you.
will language. So that's basically, we usually want that language. That's your decision. We don't leave that decision to an agent. So that's typically how
Right.
we do it, but it is merged into one document so that it's very clear.
Okay, I am going to be calling you. I have things that I want to handle for myself and might make sure my mom's covered. So that'll happen in the future, obviously.
Happy to help you both.
Okay,
I have a
Okay.
question.
go ahead, Ellen.
Okay, I receive a pension. As a result, are we, for my husband, am I going to be unable to ever get to divest us to the point where we can get Medicaid or community Medicaid or whatever they are? Because I get a pension.
Okay, so when we talk about community Medicaid, there's two parts of the financial eligibility requirements. One is income and the other is assets. So on the income side, depending upon how Medicaid's going to look at your income from all sources. So they're going to look at your pension, Social Security, distributions from your IRA, rental income, whatever your income, interest, dividends, all of that comprises your income. So it, depending upon how high your income is, remember I said you can keep about $900 in your individual name. Anything above that, we can shelter it through what's called a pooled income trust, so the income can still be used to pay for certain expenses. So income is treated differently than your resources or your assets. So your assets are everything else, your house, your bank accounts, your brokerage accounts, your IRAs, and anything that you, that's your assets. So that's where we look to try to transfer all or a portion of your assets. And typically when you're doing it in advance of a crisis, we're not transferring everything into a trust like that, to get them out of your individual name and try to get the clock ticking on the look back periods to protect those assets. So a lot of our clients, for example, will just put their house into the trust. And then they have a retirement account, but the retirement account, if it's in proper payout status, if you're over 72 now and you're taking your distributions, after the CARES Act and all that, but that your distributions count as income. But let's say you have a retirement account that has $300,000 in it. That's going to be, Medicaid's not going to count the principal balance as an asset. So sometimes we have clients who have really high income. They can privately pay, right? They can stay home. They have enough income to pay for all their living expenses, and then the rest of their income, they have enough to pay for their care. So it just depends on the situation. It depends how much income you have and what kind of care needs you have, and whether you have enough to cover. If you have more than enough to cover all of your care expenses, then Medicaid is probably not going to be in the picture. But everybody's different, so we have to analyze everybody's income and assets separately. So that's where we really have to have a private conversation and take a look at everything and crunch the numbers and see if you can, if you are or would be a candidate at some point for the Medicaid program.
Yeah, I just thought that the pension completely bumps everything
Not
out.
necessarily. It depends what your total income is. It depends what what your expenses consist of and what your care needs are. And then we can take a look at it. If your income, if you needed to go to a nursing home, but you have income of $18,000 a month, well, then you probably can privately pay for your stay there. So Medicaid wouldn't cover, right? So sometimes we have clients who both husband and wife worked in the school system and they have really high pensions and other in high income. And sometimes, they can self-insure. They're not going to, they'd be candidates for Medicaid. So it depends on the situation.
Thank
But
you.
it doesn't necessarily knock you out of the box for Medicaid.
Okay, thank you.
Great. It's a great question, Ellen. Good one to ask, actually. Anybody else? Because I'm at least not on this screen. I'm going to have to, anybody? Gloria, you have another question? Go ahead. Go ahead.
Healthcare proxy, can they override the directives?
Can your healthcare agent override your living will language? It shouldn't be able to. It depends how your healthcare proxy is drafted. But in my office, we don't leave the end of life decision making to the healthcare agent. To me, that's the worst decision you ever leave to your agent. Your agent's usually, your closest relatives, and you don't want to leave that decision to them. The only thing that gives them peace of mind and solace is knowing that that's what you wanted. So if the hospital said that there was no hope of recovery, no brain function, you suffer a heart attack or a stroke, they would not, use any heroic measures to keep you alive. So that's your decision, not your agent's decision. So if you leave the decision saying my agent knows my wishes as to artificial nutrition, respiration, hydration, and all that, then it's going to be their decision. And they're supposed to follow what they know to be what you want. What's in your best interest and what is it that you would want. So really important to choose the right people that would carry out your instructions and your wishes. But the best way to not leave that to chance is putting your instructions down properly in the document, so that would be followed.
Thank you.
Good question.
Any other questions, guys? Big chance to ask.
Yes, I have a question.
Go ahead.
The question is once you live in a facility for several years and you've depleted all your extra resources and all you have left is your pension and your Social Security, will the facility make an adjustment to accept what you have to offer and maybe at that point combine with Medicaid or Medicare?
So it's a good
So-
question. It's a pretty common question, actually. Medicare, let's just set that aside. Medicare never covers assisted living or memory care. So yeah, Medicaid sometimes covers it, but Medicare doesn't. So people sometimes do have to move out because the supplement they were adding from their assets into their monthly income runs out. So they start with $200,000. They used $3,000 a month, and they would be done in some number of months, and they would have less than they needed. So people move from assisted living all the time, and they go to a less expensive place. There are a few facilities now, and Bristol was mentioned earlier, that one of them, that in some cases, if people are eligible for Medicaid, they can move in the same facility from private pay to Medicaid. That's a very common thing across the country. It's not done on Long Island very much at all, but there are a few facilities now that for long-term residents are allowing that switch. And of course, if you had income, as Wendy discussed earlier, if you had income above $904 a month, then you'd have to shelter some out in a pooled income trust to qualify for Medicaid. So you should be planning all along. And I do for clients, I do an Excel spreadsheet and say, well, if you go here, your assets are going to last somewhere around 5 years. If you go to this place, they can last 6 years. If you go to this place, they can last perhaps 6.5 or 7 years. So all along, you should be keeping your eye on the money and understanding when your nest egg is going to run out, and have a plan that you've executed planned for long before that happens, so that you can convert to Medicaid or go to a less expensive facility.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Questions?
Does the assisted living have an obligation to find an alternate placement? And if they have Medicaid beds and you've been in there under private pay, do you have any ownership to the Medicaid beds that they have within the facility?
So there are only a few facilities that do that now. So I don't think the rules of the road have really been established quite yet. If you can't pay, they're going to want to help you. They're going to want to help you go somewhere else. So I don't know that you'd say they have an obligation to help you, but they're motivated to help you because they want to help you find some place that's safe and some place that is comfortable and provides the right amount of care. So then they can, and this is talking commercially, so they can refill that bed with somebody who can sort of pay the rate. It's not a problem though when people move out of assisted living. It happens on a regular basis. People don't like the food, so they move. They don't like the environment. They just want to change. Sometimes we're in apartments for a few years. We just want a different one. We don't want to move. So moving around is a pretty common thing, and it's not a big deal.
Do they live a month to month, or do they have a contracted time that they require you to stay?
They're all month to month, 30-day notice, and you're out of there.
There's
I
usually
have a
a waiting
question.
list for the Medicaid assisted living program beds, but if you're a resident in one of those facilities, you usually have priority. You're usually going in there because of that, so you're on that waiting list. So that's usually, and Mike could speak to that probably better than me, but that's what my experience is with my clients.
And more facilities are trying to convert part of their beds to Medicaid. That's a New York State decision. They decide how many Medicaid beds there will be in the state. And facilities want that. They want that changeover to happen within their own facility. They want to give people continuity for the rest of their life if they can. And if New York State authorized 10,000 more Medicaid beds, they'd be snapped up in a moment. So there just aren't that many.
Deborah, go ahead.
I just have a question because maybe I'm confused. I actually a while ago went to look for my mother because I thought she lives in Westchester. I wanted her to move to me. And I looked at some of the assisted livings. I went to the Atria in Roslyn, which is independent, and I went to the Bristol in Jericho. They're quite beautiful. The Bristol told me flat out, maybe I misunderstood. If you don't have money, you can't pay. And the Atria too, they did not lead me to believe that they take Medicaid patients. Maybe I misunderstood.
Well, they don't in Jericho.
Oh.
Yeah. So there in Bristol has and Julie might be in, if she wants to jump in.
I think
she's
Julie
on the
jumped
line.
off I think she jumped off the call, actually.
So-
I thought, because I thought the woman said to me, if you don't, then you can't stay here,
Yeah, those
made
are-
it, because it's quite expensive. Like when you said even starting at 3,000, the Bristol was $9,000. My mother didn't flap out. My mother said, I don't want to pay the money. My mother's of sound mind, so wasn't gonna force her any place, but she said it's too expensive. I can't pay 9,000 and live in one little room.
So
So,
part of, just to give myself a tiny commercial, that's part of why people work with folks like me, because I have the
Okay.
whole 80 places to choose from, and I can help find a
Right.
place that feels like good value to you.
right,
If it doesn't feel like good value, you shouldn't choose it.
right.
Bristol has only one facility now where they have a step down to Medicaid, only one building
Oh,
of their 12 or so on Long Island. They're trying to
Okay.
get Medicaid beds in others, but
Which
Okay,
one? Mike, which one is that one?
Lynbrook.
Lynbrook. Oh, right. Yes, I knew that. Okay.
okay. I was just, so thank you for clarifying that.
Okay.
Welcome.
Anyone else? Questions? They're great questions you guys are asking. They're all really
They
good
are.
questions.
Yeah.
Anybody?
What is the regulations for people going out on private doctor's appointments, coming back in with COVID? Not that they have COVID, but the restrictions because of going out to a doctor's care appointment and then coming back in. Do they have to then quarantine?
Man, it's a mess. Everybody has a different rule. So you think when they go out, they're exposed, right? Even if they go out in an ambulette, they're exposed. In one chain, you can come back the same day without penalty, with no restrictions. Another one, you have to get tested before you come back, and you have to deliver a negative COVID test when you come back. Of course, if you're exposed in the car, it's not going to read positive. So, but there was typically quarantining. That's not happening much anymore. And it's important to remember that at least 70% of the people on Long Island in assisted living and memory care have now received both shots of a vaccination. So the lockdowns now are happening because the staff's spouse was exposed. Not even what got sick, but the staff spouse was exposed. So the vaccinations are helping. In some places, virtually every resident has had 2 shots, and they're feeling pretty good about it. But it's all over the board about leaving and coming back. So it's surprising they don't have it. There's no rule around this. We think that the governor has set firm rules around everything, and there are a lot of really important situations like that just haven't been addressed across the board.
Go, Reggie. Oh, Richard, and then Reggie. Go ahead, Richard.
Yes, I have a question probably for Wendy. In relation to assets and income, the RMD from the IRA, is that considered income?
Yes,
Sure it is.
yes. That was an easy one. Thank you.
I even knew that one.
But the rest of the IRA,
That was my.
excuse me, the rest of the IRA is an asset?
So if it's in proper payout status and if you're applying for Medicaid, you take it out monthly. If it's in the right amount, then yes, the principal balance is protected, won't be counted as an asset.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And then wait, I think Reggie had his hand up. Reggie, go ahead.
I was wondering, is it possible to get a copy of the slide presentation?
Well, this is recorded so that you certainly can go on our website to certainly listen to it. I don't know about the slides.
If
I have no problem in.
I can make my slides available if you like. If you want to give me your email address, I can send it to you, or give it to Gloria. Or
Yeah.
Gloria, I can just send you the slides. And
Why
you
don't you
can.
send them to me and then I can email them out. Anybody who
Sure.
wants them, I think between Sim and I, we will have all your emails, I'm sure.
It's only $12.99 if you get it, if you ask today. Tomorrow it goes up to $25.
Whoa. I
Just
need
kidding.
her. She's got to join our development.
I want to see if
team,
people were paying
Wendy.
attention. No.
Yeah, you got to join our development team. This is good. This is a good
No.
way to make money. I love it.
Yeah, and all the proceeds go to the JCC, so it's okay.
That's what I mean. That's
Right.
what I mean,
Yeah,
right?
it's okay.
Yeah.
Right.
I think Kristen had a question.
Go ahead, Kristen.
Right. Mike, in your presentation, you mentioned that assisted living facilities do permit people in wheelchairs.
Yes.
I'm wondering, at what point does someone become ineligible for assisted living and need to move up to skilled nursing?
If their care can be delivered fully by an aide, then they can typically stay in assisted living. Now, that implies that they're moving around, they don't have bed sores of any consequence. It helps if they can assist in their transfer, but so they can stand up and manage some of their weight as they're moving into the wheelchair. But now many assisted living facilities have bought mechanical lifts to get people out of bed, to get people onto the toilet. So mobility is less a problem than it was even 2 or 3 years ago. If someone's on a vent, if they need IV medication, if they need care delivered by a registered medical professional, that's a nursing home. But if it's an aide who's doing this work, and an aide would do all the work that we just discussed, then they can typically stay in assisted living.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
The
Gloria,
ratio,
go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
the ratio in assisted living in comparison to nursing home as far as resident or patient to aide, what is the ratio?
That's
Is
an
it better
interesting-
in assisted living or less?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So I can't really speak to nursing homes. I don't really know what their ratio is. In assisted living,
5
it's
to 1, but it's not standard.
okay. In assisted living, it's typically 7 or 8 to 1. And in memory care, it's a little bit, the ratio is a little bit more favorable. The ratio would be 1 to 6 probably.
But there's no regulation.
No.
And assisted living don't answer to the Department of Health?
That I can't say. So that's a good question. I'm not quite sure. I don't want to give you an answer. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. They report to someone because they're opening and closing and quarantining. So they're reporting to someone on that, but I can't say exactly who it is. So I don't want to overstate there.
Joanna asks for Mike, do you handle areas outside of Long Island?
I have colleagues who do that. So we have people like me in Westchester and all the surrounding areas and in Florida and Arizona. So we can usually find someone like me in any part of the country.
Okay, I think we have hit the time. You've asked amazing questions. Thank you guys so much, Wendy and Mike, for that, really, for all that information. We all have a lot to think about, go back and kind of, go through and review. We will have our recording on our website, and so certainly look us up. That's where we also have all of our programs listed. You certainly can download the recording from there, and we will have the slides for you also to review if you're interested. All right, everyone. I want to wish you all a good evening. Take care and stay safe, everybody.
Thanks. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you.